Councilwoman Rodriguez, thanks so much for being here with us to discuss this. So June 16th was a big day in San Marcos. It was a close vote, 4-3. But San Marcos has now become the first Texas city to outright ban data centers. I know this was an initiative that you pushed from the very beginning, so that had to be satisfying. But I'm sure that you also saw almost immediately the reporting in the Texas Tribune that Republican State Senator Paul Bettencourt is planning to challenge the city's authority to do this. We've also seen counties across the state that have attempted to do this and then changed their minds after they received big lawsuits. Are you all girding for the fights ahead there in San Marcos?
I thank you for the opportunity to be here. I think ultimately it comes to a decision by the council whether or not we continue to take the fight into the courts should it require that response. But I can tell you, for me personally, absolutely. I think it's ultimately within our authority, which is why I proposed the amendment. We are a home rule city. And despite state preemption and all of the things in which the state legislature has done over the last decade to take that authority away from cities, I can't see why this is not within our authority. And so if we need to be the precedent-setting case, for me personally, if it was up to me, I'm ready for it. And I think it's what our people want. So it's imperative for us to take it to the next step.
So San Marcos is now a test case as we go forward here. A lot of cities around the state, and counties for that matter, are watching closely to see what their next step should be, based upon what happens with you all. Have you all been hearing from other municipalities around the state?
Oh, absolutely. I can tell you, since the vote, I have had people from all across Central Texas, lawmakers from across Central Texas, from down south. They want to know, they're watching it closely. They want to see how long and whether this sticks. It's making them eager. It is telling people, it is showing lawmakers the authority in which and the ways in which we can accomplish what our people want. And so absolutely, people are eager. They are looking to emulate, and I have had no indication otherwise.
And have you all heard anything directly from state leaders?
We have not. We have not. I know that the Texas Tribune reporting said that Senator Bettencourt was going to reach out to our city. It is my knowledge that has yet to happen. Normally, when there is concern, the state is pretty swift. And so the timing and the delay is making this a whole lot more interesting.
So let's say you have the ear right now, though, of State Senator Paul Bettencourt or the governor or the lieutenant governor. What is your message to them on this?
I was actually happy to see that the governor is starting to listen. And so if I had an ear, I think really the reason for this was not to challenge, but to rather raise a red flag that something is wrong. And so the hope is that state lawmakers can look at what we're doing, not with eagerness to challenge it, but to actually understand why. And that is that people are desperately wanting something to be done. We cannot say that we want to be the data center capital of the world and not prioritize the infrastructure necessary first. It is cart before the horse. And so if I had it, we have a chance come January with this next legislative session to respond. We have a chance to invest in infrastructure. We have a chance to regulate these things. And I'm sorry, but if anything is less than a priority to that, you're wasting people's time. People want action. They do not want you to challenge the cities who are acting.
We've seen pushback to data centers in other areas by citizens and by local leaders here in Texas. What was it that elevated this issue specifically in San Marcos to the point where the city took this unprecedented action?
Our people. I can tell you, we spent hearing after hearing after hearing, hours in here, 8, 9, 10 hours of hearings. We had over 500 people over the course of months come into our chambers. They had town halls. Our entire community was in uprising over this issue. It was fully the people. I can't sit here and say that it was just me as a council member. It was community driven, and my colleagues heard it and they listened, thankfully.
And did those same people, were they responsible for pushing this over the top after initially, earlier this year, it failed by 1 vote, but then it came back in June and it actually passed by 1 vote? Was that the people?
Absolutely. I think I've said it before. It is my job to listen to the people. I have one of the easiest jobs in the world, should I be able to listen. They were clear. It didn't matter whether time had passed, they would still come. They were emailing us, they were texting us, they were calling, they were doing anything that they could to raise awareness. So yes, this win is wholly attributed to the people. And I think that's what I want state lawmakers to know. This was not a reactionary decision by myself as a lone council member. It was in response to the demands of our people. And I was happy to listen.
Councilwoman Rodriguez, you mentioned that we've seen a trend in recent years of the state legislature pulling back powers from local government. There's been speculation that because of this, we may see state government in this next legislative session possibly try to move to strip cities of the power to do this. Are you concerned about that?
I think that's a concern every municipality has every time the session meets, regardless of this issue. I can tell you in talking with lawmakers across the different municipalities, we expect that every time they gavel in for a legislative session every 2 years, that there are further powers stripped away each time. And so now it's a matter of the time we have in between each session. Do we want to sit here and utilize the tools that we still have? Or do we want to sit here and govern in fear? And I refuse to govern in fear. And so, yes, it's absolutely a thought in the back of my head. But again, the fight continues. And if that means that we have to take it to the state capitol, then we take it to the state capitol.
We heard from Governor Abbott. He was a major booster of AI data centers as late as, I believe it was November of last year. He touted Texas as, quote, the epicenter of AI development. And just in the past month here, he has been changing his tone, now calling for regulations and legislation to, quote, shield Texans from data center infrastructure costs and asking legislators to repeal the sales tax exemption for data centers. You mentioned earlier that you feel like the governor is listening, in your words. Are you heartened by this, and do you think that this has some sway there in Austin?
As somebody who's worked in the legislature before, cautiously optimistic. Cautiously optimistic. I think the nonpartisan nature, though, of the opposition could be a turning point. I think this issue, compared to a lot of issues I've been familiar with and worked around, feels different in that way. This is not a partisan issue. This is very much, people view it as a human issue. They want the infrastructure to be able to survive, and that's water, that's clean air, that's a safe place to live. They want that prioritized over the profits for corporations and the like. And so the governor really has an opportunity to either listen to the people or continue to govern in a way that is purely profit-based and not actually focusing on the people, in which we should be as lawmakers. So cautiously optimistic.
When you say nonpartisan, so they're in San Marcos. Have you heard from people opposing these data centers vociferously who are Democrat, Independent, Republican? Have you heard from all the above?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would even argue people who aren't even engaged in politics. I'll say that has been the biggest surprise, not even just the nonpartisan nature. It's the people who this is the first issue that has compelled them to get involved because they are so disheartened at what they're seeing across the country. That is huge in terms of engagement. And so I'm happy about that. We need more people following along. And so absolutely, I think that's why I continue to be amazed at this issue.
What's your thought about the agriculture secretary here in Texas, Sid Miller, coming out here in recent days and calling on the governor publicly to not just address this in a legislative session next year, but to actually call a special session right now to get in front of this? What's your thought about that?
I can tell you, I read Commissioner Miller's first letter that he penned about this issue, and I was deeply surprised, but also deeply appreciative. I think, again, it's a change in tone, but also it gets at what I was talking about earlier. People are not seeing this as a left versus right issue. It's affecting all of us. And I think that letter by the commissioner, that call by the commissioner, further solidifies that. And I hope to see more of that. It takes a certain level of courage to challenge and go against the grain. And so I did. I looked at that with admiration. I did.
Now, you all don't have any data centers in San Marcos right now. And again, this ban is in place to prevent any from coming. But you've got them right outside the city limits. They are knocking on the door. What's the biggest concern with that?
You know, my biggest thing right now, as somebody who represents a city, is figuring out next legislative session what we can do to help our counties. Our counties should be able, there has to be a balance struck in terms of property rights, but also protecting and controlling growth. And so advocacy for me has to be for our counties. My heart goes out to them, that the fact that they do not have the same tools that we do. And so, but we're all interconnected. Our infrastructure, our water, our air does not see these fictitious lines that are geographical boundaries. And so my solidarity with them has to be resolute.
I was going to ask you, hasn't that affected you all as a city, even though it's not in the city limits, but right next to it?
Absolutely. For people who don't know, we were actually, there was a planned data center, 200 acres it would have spanned in our city. But now you have a data center adjacent to us that is actually seeking to buy reclaimed water so that they can start their operations. And so, when you see that from a city side, it makes you question, did they ever have the infrastructure necessary in the first place? Are we the backup? And so it's still affecting us. This is still an ongoing conversation. And I'm keeping a close eye on it along the way.
Okay, so the most talked about possibility for a challenge to San Marcos doing this is HB 2127, which was passed back in 2023, also known as the Death Star bill by its opponents. Basically, it took aim at progressive policies in Texas cities, preventing them from enacting ordinances that go further than state law does. It allows any citizen to sue a city to challenge them if it feels like they've gone too far. Is that the biggest threat that San Marcos is facing here right now?
I think so. I worked the session where that was passed, and I can tell you when we were staffing that bill, I don't think any of us at that time truly understood the devastation that bill would carry. And so, seeing it from a municipal side, it is in the back of our mind a concern, yes. But for the people who don't know, that bill has not been successfully challenged in court. It hasn't. We haven't actually tested it. And so, like I said earlier at the beginning, if my council so chooses, and that's the threat and the bill that's going to be used to challenge us, then let's see what we can do and set that precedent.
You may be the test case.
We may be.
Let me ask you about 2025's House Bill 2559. That's been brought up as well. That restricts the ability of a municipality to issue an indefinite moratorium on certain types of property developments. That's been threatened as well. What's your thought on that one?
I find that to be a little bit more loose of a thought, quite frankly. This is not a moratorium. We did it through our land development code. And so we made it a prohibited use versus, outright banning it via an ordinance. And so, again, I welcome any critique, but sometimes I just don't think that one has as much teeth, just to be frank.
Can I just get your thought on this number here? Pew Research a few months ago put out some information of 296 existing data centers just in Texas, with 170 more planned in this state. 466 in total, that would be. That is second only to Virginia. When you hear those numbers, what jumps to your mind?
What jumps to my mind is the fact that I've spent the last 2 or 3 legislative sessions listening to committees where people in the community, in various communities, whether that's municipal, whomever, including lawmakers, raising red flags about our lack of infrastructure in terms of water, in terms of electricity. And so when you hear that reoccurring concern and no action truly accompanying that, and then we're over here welcoming all of these things in that drain each of those resources, what are we doing? It makes no sense. It's nonsensical. And so it's frustrating. Again, that is the premise of all of this, is why are we being reactionary and not preparing for the growth that's inevitable? And we are not prepared. And that is terrifying, not only to me as a policymaker, but to our community members as well. What does our future look like?
But proponents of this say this is the wave of the future, and Texas should be in on that. It should be, as the governor said, the epicenter.
Right. Again, I think sometimes what I've realized is policymakers are a bit out of touch with the communities in which they serve. And when I talk to your average everyday person, they're not asking to be the epicenter for a data center. They're asking to be the epicenter for good healthcare, for good paying jobs, for good wages, for all of those things. These things do not bring those promises. They're not fulfilling the promises that we should be keeping as lawmakers. And so I think it's a misprioritization of what we should be doing as a state.
Two other quick things here for you. Critics have said that this adds to local business community. It adds to the tax base where these big data centers go in. Are you worried about losing that there in San Marcos?
You know, I think economic development is an important tool that every city should focus on. It's what keeps us running, and I absolutely agree. But I don't think that being pro-business makes us as lawmakers have to approach everything with a ubiquitous yes. It takes a level of caution and consideration. And so, in terms of growth, I know there was a statement made that we look like we are closed for business. We are not. The way we approach economic development is making sure that we can have the buy-in from our people. And regardless of purported tax benefits and what have you, when your people don't want something, they don't want it. And it's not my job to force feed them. And I truly believe there are other ways in which we as a city can welcome in good business and be prosperous. This doesn't have to be our everything.
You touched on that last thing I was going to ask you, that comment that it shows that San Marcos is closed for business. You don't think this is going to discourage investment from other big developments that may be eyeing San Marcos?
I don't. I don't. I think we are a beautiful community. And I think when it comes to, again, when it comes to bringing the development in and having the buy-in from our people, we're seeing good jobs being offered here. We're seeing companies interested still. And so, no, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that one bit. I reject that.
Well, we will all keep watching what happens in San Marcos. Again, it has become the first Texas city to ban data centers. Council member Amanda Rodriguez, thanks so much for being with us here today. I know that this is a really busy time. We really appreciate the discussion.
I appreciate your interest. Thank you so much.